1619 project started by the New York Times and Nicole Hannah-Jones is in more than 3,500 schools across the nation as a curriculum, and it's based on falsehoods. But fortunately, there is a counter to that, and I'm part of the counter to that, and that is 1776 Unites, a group of scholars and activists and various people from different walks of life that were assembled by Bob Woodson of the Woodson Center in Washington, D.C. And we are providing that alternative vision of America's true history, and not just its true history. The story of America is a story of whites and blacks working together. Our nation is defined by more than slavery. It's defined by the things that we have accomplished. And we focus on the successes of people of color that were born slaves, and they ended up, some of them becoming millionaires. Many of them were educated long before affirmative action. And there are schools in the Northeast and various parts of the country that did not discriminate. They have always had Black alumni. And they didn't need affirmative action. Black people were getting into colleges. They were graduating, sometimes, at or near the top of their classes.
Tom Sowell was debating another economist, but he was positing that the same narrative that we see today, that it's our history with slavery and racism that keeps blacks down today. And this is back in the 80s. He said, Sowell, if you could prove that that blacks after Reconstruction did as well as whites and then began to regress, then your arguments would make sense. But if you look at the story and the impact of Tuskegee Institute and Booker T. Washington,
right,
and you really unpack the differences between the philosophy of W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington,
right,
you start to see a different story.
It is a totally different story. And one of the things I've done recently, and it will be released by PragerU soon, is an interview about Booker T. Washington's Up From Slavery.
Oh,
I think that if more Black people read that book, especially those young people who feel like they can't do, then once they took the time to read that book, I think that they would be highly motivated to work harder and also see that Blacks can do all things, and that we're not handicapped, we're not dependent or in great need of people to hand us things, that all we want, and all most of us have wanted in the past, is for people to get out of our way and not to hold us back. It's meant, everything, the rhetoric that's taking place, it's meant to fuel white guilt, white uncertainty, white shaming. But when it's young kids that are being taught to hate their skin color, to hate their ancestors, to believe that their grandparents and their parents are bad because they don't share the views of the political left. When that kind of indoctrination takes place, it destroys families.
Yeah, and definitely people are beginning to feel ashamed of it. It's easy for white parents would feel, especially with like in the mixed race couples. I have a lot of friends who, their families are composed like mine, there's multiple race to them. I think that the assumption is because the world looks at anyone, any color as a person of color, as a Black person or brown person, the white parents tend to assume that that's how the world's going to look at them and that's how they should treat and train and raise up their children. I think that they sometimes might forget that, by doing that, they're also sort of teaching them to kind of hate the white part of themselves.
Teaching them that they are human and God created one race, the human race, and ejecting or rejecting the identity politics.